Hey guys, what's up? It's BigJackFilms here, and welcome to this very special tribute video. Please forgive the crudeness of my room. It's in a bit of a clusterfuck because I'm off to camp in a few weeks, and I'm still filming a bunch of shit for the movie. But, I just wanted to, do this special tribute video to, a man who was pretty much very much an impact on my childhood, or half my childhood even, because of his great film scores in a lot of my favorite childhood movies. That man is Mr. James Horner. He unfortunately passed away due to a plane crash, which is a terrible way to go in terms of whatever dying. But I mean, we're not here to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is his legacy and what he left behind in terms of the film scores that he composed. He wrote songs for and everything. Now, I just want to clarify, James Horner is, in my opinion, pretty much the second base John Williams. He is the guy, it's pretty much, if you can't get John Williams to score your music, you go to James Horner, and I think, honestly, James has actually produced probably more music than John, and a lot of his scores are absolutely incredible, and in my opinion, some of his best work in terms of the music industry, in terms of movie scores. And a lot of, I have a lot of his scores on my computer because, I just like to listen to it, because the one thing that James really captured was not only, one thing I just want to say quickly, he was half my childhood, because a lot of the movies I watched, and a lot of the movies I watched as a kid, were, a lot of his music really was half of the reason those movies are good, because the score really his scores really captured majesty, magic, and imagination. Especially, it really captured imagination in what I would make up in my own films. He also, on top of that, his scores are some of the most powerful pieces of scores I've ever heard. He's really big on the sound and the loudness of film scores, in terms of what he does. But I'm just gonna go through a list of some of my favorite scores that he's done. Obviously, one of the big ones is The Land Before Time. Now, I love The Land Before Time. That was one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite childhood films, and probably one of my favorite films in general, because it's for a kids movie. It's sort of dark and everything. I mean, given the sequels are kind of but the first movie was an incredible movie. Spielberg, Lucas produced it. Don Bluth. In my opinion, this is Don Bluth's best movie. Was Land Before Time, and it just one thing that James really captured was the whole power and majesty of what life must have been like 65 million years ago when the dinosaurs were around, and he really captured the awe and wonder to what dinosaurs were like back then. Even though it's got talking dinosaurs and shit, he really got that down in his score. Now, keep in mind, I love the Jurassic Park score, but Land Before Time is probably my second favorite dinosaur score in terms of movies. And on top of that, If We Hold On Together, who doesn't get a tear in their eye when they hear that song? Diana Ross, and especially James writing the tone and the music for it. And such a great piece of music in there. And then going on to another Don Bluth film. Well, it's not really Don Bluth as it is the Amblin Entertainment animation studio that Spielberg financed back in the day in the 90s with Universal. And that's another thing, that Spielberg and Amblin and James Horner were the guys who made all these animated films that I actually personally liked as a kid. But one of them, again, is An American Tail, especially Fievel Goes West. I absolutely love the score to Fievel Goes West, especially the song The Girl You Left Behind, because that is a true Western song, and it's something you'd want to sing in a bar and shit with a bunch of drunken cowboys and beat the shit out of each other and so on. But an incredible piece of music in there. He really knows how to capture that family entertainment with a bit of dark tones, but overall is good for kids, and that's something I really appreciate with his work. But I will say one of my favorite scores he did was Braveheart. Braveheart, in my opinion, has probably one of the most epic scores I've ever heard. With the Scottish bagpipes and the fucking, just the way he sets up the battle sequences and the victory theme and everything. The freedom theme. It's that is one of his best. Given, I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings score, but Braveheart pretty much ties neck and neck with Lord of the Rings for best epic movie score. And I really love that piece of work. One of my favorite pieces of music is called Gathering the Clans, or Making Plans. And that just has a typical Scottish music beat to it where, you can do the Irish jig to that shit. And it's a great piece of music overall, especially when the music's playing, you have Mel Gibson going, "Oh, you're ready for the war!" It's a great piece of music that I really admire. Whenever I start my battle videos, that's the shit that gets me pumped up. And that's another thing James Horner is mostly recognizable for, is that a lot of his scores contain the bagpipes, and he really knew how to get those bagpipes in, man, like an incredible bit in there. Now, one of the scores that is kind of unknown, but I only have it for one piece of music, and that is the score to Cocoon. Keep in mind, I've never seen the movie, but the score is not that bad. And the one thing that really drew me in was I remember when Super 8 was coming out, and the trailer was everywhere and everything, and that was overall, Super 8 is a fantastic movie. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. It's pretty much E.T. meets the Goonies. But when that second trailer came out, and the music was building up, you're just like sitting there like, oh fuck, shit, holy crap, and it literally, it's the Ancession theme that he created, James created for that piece of music, and I think that's one of the best Alien style themes. Like, if I saw literally outside, if I saw extraterrestrials coming in, that's the music I'd hear. I'd be backing up, and I'd be what's called Spielberging, where you just stare out in the distance. That's called Spielberging when you're doing a shot. But that's the kind of music I would hear when I think of Alien. So again, props to him for creating a great Alien theme. In terms of, if extraterrestrials came down, that's probably what you would hear. And then, of course, there's Jumanji, directed by Joe Johnston. I haven't seen Jumanji in a while, and I might take a look at that one day, because that movie is also turning 20 years old. But the thing is, with Jumanji, he knew how to create a great jungle beat, a great jungle score, and that's another thing I'll give credit to with another score coming up. But the jungle beats he does for a lot of these movies, he captured the darkness and what dangers are in the jungles out there in the world. And, like, especially that bit with the lion and Robin Williams, who's, like, they're fighting each other, and that flute that plays, it's like, ooh, shit, that's amazing. Great piece of score there. And then, of course, there's the Zorro soundtrack from the recent two Zorro films, The Mask of Zorro and The Legend of Zorro. I love Zorro. Keep in mind that he's one of my favorite superheroes, even though he's not technically a superhero. But I love the Zorro score. It's heroic, it's action-packed, it's adventurous, and, you want to go around sword fighting and shit. And when on top of, like, Martin Campbell reviving the Zorro franchise, which had been dead since the 80s or the late 90s with the television series, James Horner is another reason that movie was successful, because he recaptured what the adventures of Zorro was like and brought it to a little bit of a darker level, which is why, if you remember in my Mighty Joe Young review, I mentioned the Zorro flute, which is where he would play that flute that would go, woo, that kind of haunting flute theme. And again, great piece of music from there. And then, of course, there's Mighty Joe Young, the Disney remake. Again, captures that jungle beat and everything in it. And again, this is probably one of my favorite scores, is the Mighty Joe Young soundtrack. He really captured the majesty and the wonder of Mr. Joseph Young. And he essentially just, like, created a new theme. And I actually prefer this score than I do the original film score. And it's again, I prefer the remake than the original, which is, it's okay, I guess. But, again, Mighty Joe Young, great score in that sense. And then one score that I really like that he did that I was which is from a kid's film that I sort of like, but I think a lot of people don't like. Once Upon a Forest. If you guys have not seen this film, it's an animated film about a bunch of little forest animals who, the forest gets, like, killed by a gasoline leak, and one of the little baby animals gets sick, and so these other little animals have to go find a cure for this girl who's sick. But a lot of big names in that. Michael Crawford, Elizabeth Ross from Mad Men, and a few other people are in that movie. But the score is, again, the reason I go back to watch it, because it's very much a magical score. in a sense. And the two songs that I listen to the most is Please Wake Up, which has Michael Crawford singing. I mean, can't have Michael Crawford in anything without him singing. And then Once Upon a Time with Me, which it plays at the end of the film. And I think that's one of the songs that really captures James Horner in a nutshell. And really, that was one of his best scores. And then, of course, there's Titanic. Everybody knows the Titanic score. My Heart Will Go On. Do I have to say anything else? The thing is, like, I love the Titanic score. Again, great piece of music. Especially when the ship's sinking, James really gets down the beats and the suspense that you're feeling like, oh shit, these people might not make it. And especially kind of the tragic theme where, like, everybody's dying and, like, and it's super sad and shit. And I think that's one of the reasons the film worked was the soundtrack. And James Horner is actually good friends with James Cameron, who eventually he went on to do other film scores for James, like Avatar, which is not my favorite score, but I'll let it pass. And then, of course, there's We're Back, A Dinosaur Story. Again, a movie I loved as a kid. And I still love that movie. I went back and watched it. It's a great movie. And he, again, brought some great songs into the film. He brought a great score to it. And what I really like about the score is, like, the way he portrays kind of how, like, powerful New York City can be. Or even with the circus themes, it's like, oh, this is kind of like the Professor Screw Eye's Eccentric Circus, where it's like that freaky nightmare circus that happens. James really captured the horror of that circus and gave it more, like, while it's a horror show, it's also kind of family friendly, and he really captured that with that, especially when the elephants are coming in on the chains to bring the dinosaurs in. That one bit was just like, that is incredible. And then, of course, there's one of my favorite soundtracks, The Pagemaster. Again, a kid's film I loved as a child. I watched that movie. I actually think that movie's pretty good, and that's, I think, one of his best scores to date, because it's it's powerful, and the magic that he brought to that film, a film that was just essentially about reading, he brought an imagination to it that I really appreciate. And every time I go back and listen to that score, it really gets my ideas going. Like, more kids' films need these kind of scores. And while James has done several other scores like Willow and Apollo 19, it's gonna be a shame that he's no longer with us to create such memorable scores. And, especially for kids' films, I think he was he perfected kids' film scores and gave it a power and a majesty, but still kept it to that family-friendly level where it wasn't too dark and serious. And that's what I really appreciate about him, is that he was an extremely talented guy, doing so many film scores. I can't even count how many he's done. That's how many he's fucking done. And it's such a shame that he just, like, he's gone, and, and what we will mostly remember about you, James, is your legacy and what you left behind. And I will say, James, you made my childhood. You gave it a pure imagination and a pure epicness that I cannot thank you enough. So from the bottom of my heart, I wish you all the luck in, I guess, the afterlife. And, yeah, this is just me just doing a tribute video for him, because I just wanted to put that out there. I don't usually do tribute videos for people who pass away, and if you guys want me to do more of these, which I would rather not do, let me know in the comment section. But yeah, James Horner passed away, and may he rest in peace, and I'm gonna miss you and creating my childhood. Thank you for the memories.